Hello, hello. Time to edit. Let's see how much we can get through in such a short period of time today. Alright, so for those of you not here last time, our main character is in prison. The guy who runs it does an unethical experimentation on the people who are inside the prison. She is an alien. And, yeah. So I'm just going to be reading this aloud, going through the entire thing, and, yeah, doing all that good stuff. So I'm just going to get started, because today I have kind of limited time, so. I gazed at Babali's bandaged body, thinking about what kind of repair was happening underneath. He was returned to my cell days after the incident, his entire body covered in medical tape. And gauze, that's better. He was returned to my cell days after the incident, covered in medical tape and gauze. He stared distantly over the railing and down into the yard where he was no longer allowed to go. He told me he had broken nearly every bone in his arms and that his chest had shattered also when Leusa threw him. General Sakita was less than pleased, and Babali was given medical attention but was told he would never be able to leave our cell again. This needs a better transition. Oh, hey, Goose! How's it going? How are you today? We're suffering. I'm doing some editing. I just woke up, so my brain is still kind of spaghetti, but, like, this is fine. Nice, just finished my outline for my short story. Heck yeah, amazing, amazing. What kind of project are you working on? Large bandages obscured Babali's head, but one thing was certain. Sakita had ripped Babali's pride out when he tore his horns. Tore his horns. I see. This needed help. Sakita had ripped Babali's pride out when he tore his horns from his skull. Worse, food came and Babali did not eat. One of his arms still functioned on a fundamental level, but he would not touch the meal. His eyes drifted to the guards walking around, free. Leusa had been transferred to another floor, I assumed, because I had not seen her again. I slid toward Babali on the balls of my feet, off the edge of my bunk. Babali, I whispered, are you going to eat? He said nothing and did not meet my eyes. You can still talk, right? My hands were already useless, which is why let's see. This needs a readjustment as well. Our hands, my people's hooves are useless, which is why we build mechs. My people are trash, no good at anything but grazing grass. Now I can't even move my own, this needs some help. It's about a pirate who goes on a heist, but during the heist, he gets transported 400 years to the future because he doesn't realize he's still in a time machine. Oh, good. Quality, literally everything we want out of a short story with a pirate in it. That sounds fantastic. Well, hey, if you're interested too, I'll post the link over here really quick. Hold on, let me go find it. Pardon my spattering of true crime on my page here, and echidna videos apparently. You all can see what I watch: news, true crime, and echidnas. If you are interested in doing another short story thing at any point in time, I have a flash fiction contest that's going on right now. I just dropped the link into the Twitch channel as well to go to this video, so you can watch it, learn the rules. You submit your entries into the comments, and there's already like one entry, which is very exciting. And you have until August 20th, but you can potentially win literally copies of just all of my books. So if that's something that's interesting to you, you can... Oh, you're doing that! Oh, you're already doing it! Trying to figure out what the guttural noise is gonna be. What if it was just a dog? No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I joke, but also, sometimes it's really like that. It's a raccoon. Okay, let me see if I can rewrite this dialogue so that it's not garbage. What if it's just the wind, right? Yeah, it's like a trash can lid. I can't. Sometimes it's really like that, though, you know? The other entry that's in there is a really good one. It's a good start. It's exciting to see people of, like, all of the different skill levels start to put their stuff together for this. It's really great. Hi, Patricia, how are you? Welcome in. And then I went back to bed. Honestly, no, this one time, legit, I heard this horrifying noise coming out of my friend's, like, back door. I was, like, spending the night at her house, and it was like that, where it was guttural and awful and screechy and horrendous. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, what is that, really? And her house was kind of backed up against some, like, foothills, some, like, mountains. And no joke, when I opened the back door, because the room that we were staying in had an exterior door that led out of the house into the backyard, and when I looked out the door, I opened it up, and it was two raccoons having violent sex. They were so aggressive, and they were screaming at each other, and the porch light came on. They both looked at me, and I was like, you know what, nope, and I just closed the door. Oh, I'm kind of stressed out. My nephew's in the hospital. Oh no! I hope your nephew's okay. I'm sorry that that's happening. That is stressful. I hope that things get better soon. Damn. Okay, let's see if this dialogue sucks less now. Our hands, my people's hooves, are useless, which is why we build mechs. My people are trash, no good at anything but grazing grass. The Zomarane took our brains like putty and forced us to be something we're not, so we had to compensate to be engineers like them. My hands were everything to me. Now I can't even move... now I can't even move them. Let's see, let me see. Did he have... Yeah, no, it's fine. Both of them are fucked up, so this is fine. Now I can't even move them. They'll get better, Babali. You must let them heal. No. He muttered and returned his gaze outside. I pressed my lips together and scooted closer to him. Here, if you don't want to move them, I can help you. I picked up his plate of prison slop and the spoon and held it out to him. The spoon approached his mouth, and he looked like he thought about eating it for a second, but then he thrashed his head and knocked the plate and spoon out of my hand and onto the floor. The slop splattered across the wall, and he yelled out in pain from the jerked movement. Ah, oh, Babali, I huffed, knowing there would be no way for me to get any extra food. That's fine. Food from the guards for him. Why did you do that? I might as well die, he choked out, his voice strained by sadness. I don't know why I had hope. I thought that Leusa might want to stick her neck out for me. We were friends. She's the only girl in our unit. Let's see. I'm going to clarify on this bit of lore here. To Typically, girls are too important for grunt work. I thought I had a chance. That was fucking stupid, and now I'm broken. No one ever gets off the fin, Drema. I'm going to die in here. I paused for a moment, my heart pounding in my throat. What if that wasn't true? You're fucking crazy. No, hear me out. Crazy I may be, but I need your help, I said as I sat down in front of him. I think we can get out of here on the escape ships. Babali laughed, which turned into a pained cough. Get the fuck out, you're nuts. Not that nuts. We need flight codes, and I think you're the one to get them. I don't have an in with the guards anymore, sweetheart. I just fucked that entire thing up. Or do you not remember my face getting beaten in? There's no other way to get the codes? No. Babali's eyes drifted to the door again, and I sighed, deciding to go lay down on my bunk. I should have known it would be worthless to try. Wait. I turned my head to him, and his eyes darted back and forth like he had an idea. The only way that you could get the codes would be to steal them off of Tamarin. Who's Tamarin? He's the floor lead here. Head COs get physical chips that generate the randomized numbers per floor per day, and if you could somehow get one off him, we could make it. I ran the idea by Chihaya the next day. They sat in the corner of the yard with their hand over their mouth, eyebrows knotted in contemplation. So, it would be easy for me to lift a key off of, what was it you called them? No-go, I replied. No-go, I could do it. That's easy, but there's an issue with Tamarin. I know him. Like, know him? Know him? Not personally, but I've been in here a long time. He rarely comes down to this floor. He's too busy filing paperwork and keeping the other COs in line. It would take something big to draw him out. You'll think of something, I know you will. Say we even get this key. We need a pilot. Didn't you say Ylvara was a pilot? I'll need to ask her. No need to ask. A shadow loomed over me, and I lifted my head to see the underside of Ylvara's chin. She crossed her arms as she stood behind me. I'm in, she said. Anything to get us off this hellhole. All right, Chihaya sighed, sinking deeper into thought. So that's it. The three of us. And Babali? I asked. He is the one who is enabling us to escape. I only think it's fair that... No way, Chihaya spat. We don't know if he'll double-cross us. I can imagine that if he turns us in, it may shorten his sentence. He could tear this entire plan apart. I don't think he'll do it, I said. At least, I hoped he wouldn't. He's miserable. It seems he's given up on Eclipse. I've seen people do some terrible shit, kid. Chihaya rested their head on Ylvara's shoulder after Ylvara sat next to them. I wouldn't want to risk our entire plan... Or, let's see. I wouldn't want to risk our entire plan over a loose cannon like him. Also, how does he benefit the plan otherwise? He's an engineer and a pilot. If for whatever reason Ylvara becomes unable to fly, you and I don't have to worry about trying to figure it out. Also, if the ship breaks down... He can't move, Drema. His arms are trashed. Then we wait until he gets better. I had to first get Babali to swear, absolutely promise that he was not going to turn us into Eclipse before I told him the plan. He looked like he had seriously considered double-crossing us. How could you do something like that to us? I demanded of him after he confessed. It would get me a chance at my old life. He said, guilt in his eyes. It redeems me. It redeems your reputation in the eyes of monsters. This is your chance to do what you actually wanted to do. To pilot us to freedom. Wouldn't you rather do that than get stepped on by people who want to abuse you? Babali took a deep breath in through his nose and sat silently for a long time. So long that I got up and considered trying to sleep a little. I laid down in my bunk, and after a long period of silence, he broke it. Okay. I swear I won't betray you. I sat up in my bunk and looked him in the eyes. They seemed unsure and afraid, which was reasonable. This was a frightening proposition. I couldn't help myself. I went to Five Below yesterday to buy some cheap art supplies while I wait for Blick to come in the mail. I bought a watercolor pad and those jelly gouache, and honestly, I don't know if the paper or the paint is trash, but I'm having fun. Honestly, the answer is probably both, but it's still cool. Oh, nice. I did end up opening my older Blick order, so I have brushes to use. Oh, that's good. At least the brushes help. Because the worst is cheap art brushes, honestly, because then all the, like, bristles fall out and then it gets stuck in your painting and you're like, wow, this is great. I'm sorry, I thought you were still reading your book and a character went to Five Below. Can you imagine Space Five Below? It's fine. You absolutely promise? I pressed. I promise. And now to convince Chehaya. They drummed their fingers on the table and rolled their eyes when I told them what Babali had said. Of course he would say something like that, they said. But do you trust him? I have to. You know as well as I do if Ilvara becomes unable to fly for whatever reason. We die. The faster we can steal the ship and get out of here, the safer we'll be. Let him heal. It'll give us, you, a little more time to make sure our plan is solid before we jump. Chehaya, after gazing into the floor for what felt like minutes, eventually nodded. Fine, he's in, but if we die, it's your fault. I was called up to General Sakita's office after I had mentioned it to let's see. I'm gonna add in another little thing here. Just because it feels better. I was called up to General Sakita's office after I had mentioned the plan to Chehaya, and I was worried I had been caught. General Sakita sat as he always had, his fingers laced. Today, he had a plate for me of sonu, a sweet treat, and he smiled as though he gave me the best present in the world. I used the utensil he gave me, metal and pronged, to cut into the sponge of the sonu and as he watched me take a bite out of it. The mashed sweet paste melted in my mouth. It was good, indeed. But why? So, how is it? He pressed. Delicious. Excellent. It smells quite lovely. I'll have to try it someday. I said nothing and put my utensil down. Please, finish your dessert. I'll get down to business after you've enjoyed it. Don't mind me. Sakita dropped his eyes to his tablet, which he tapped on, sending a message, and I finished my sweets. The room fell eerily silent as he waited for me to eat. The only sound, the scraping of my... Yeah, no, this is fine. The only sounds the scraping of my utensil and the tapping of his fingers. After I swallowed the last bite, I put my silverware down, and he pushed the plate away from me. He folded up his tablet and slid his chair closer to his desk, lacing his fingers underneath his chin. May I see your hand? He asked. Are you going to cut me again? I retorted, putting my hands in my lap. Chehaya had made me unafraid, taught me confidence. If Sakita needed me, he would not kill me. No. I searched his eyes. Mine darted back and forth across his face, which was placid. His room was kept ice cold, as he no longer needed to heat it for me. His hair shimmered white as it fell over his shoulder, and the corner of his mouth twitched into a smile. It was a dead smile. No joy. I felt as though I was being stalked in the swamp, and in one wrong move, I would become a meal. I set my hand on the desk, and his eyebrows flicked in satisfaction. He removed my glove and set it aside, inspecting my finger. Bend it for me, he ordered, and I did as he commanded. He photographed my hand and looked at a picture of my bones inside my skin. He took notes and folded his tablet up again, leaning back in his chair. You really are incredible. I said nothing. What happened to you, dear? You used to be friendly. I hope you're not making friends that influence you negatively. Your passive disposition made you amiable. I'm in a prison. I think it would be quite difficult to not change given the circumstances. I have been treating you like a princess. He spat, his calm demeanor shattering for a moment. I demand respect. I cannot respect one who toys with life like you do. I have seen innocents beaten to death and tortured alive. You have no right. Sakita grabbed my hand and jerked me across the table, his gloved fingers creaking as the thick material rubbed against my skin. My abdomen slammed into the edge of the table, causing a plate to rattle. or the plate to rattle, and Arca 1 and Arca 2 moved swiftly to his sides to detain me. He held his position for a moment before standing and dragging me to my feet. "I have every right," he whispered, "to detain criminals and traitors. I have every right to break each creature I encounter down into measurable parts and to dissect their mechanisms. In order to advance civilization and the knowledge of the galaxy, it is my duty to do what I must. Will you break me apart until there is nothing left of me, General?" I spat in his face. "With hope, no." General Sakita held his hand out, and Arca 1 produced what I had learned was called a scalpel. Content warning for medical torture. This one's not super bad, but if you don't want to listen to it, please scroll away. I'll mark in the chat when it's done. He took the blade and ran it along the inside of my hands, taking off a chunk of skin. I winced and writhed, attempting to pull from his grip, but he was much stronger than I. That was it. I would hope your species' miraculous ability to regenerate would keep you alive. My colleagues would tear you apart until you died, to test the limits of your genetics, but I will not. Why? Sit, he demanded, and Arca 2 pushed me into my chair. Arca 1 stored my skin, and I cradled my hand, bleeding. Arca 2 roughly slapped a patch of a bandage onto my hand that covered the wound. Actually, I'm just going to use bandage here. "You've disappointed me, Drema," General Sakita hissed. "Change your attitude, or I will have to revoke your privileges. I do not deserve to be privileged. I don't want to see Babali suffer anymore, and if I have to eat that prison trash you serve, so be it." Sakita's breath shook, and he blinked slowly at me. He looked on the cusp of frustration, like he wanted so badly to hit me, but something stopped him. "You're brilliantly infuriating, you know that?" he said. "How so?" I replied, struggling under the Arca 2's grip. "I plan on testing your skin, seeing if there's anything genetically that I can extract from your cells to give to the common people. By decoding your species, we could cure innumerable diseases. We could potentially beat death. Isn't that something you'd like to see? No more sickness? No more death? I would have loved to participate in research as a choice, not imprisoned, tortured, and talked down to." Sakita took the back of his hand and hit me hard across the face. His hand was a lot heavier than I expected, and I felt a crack and immediate sharp pain in my jaw. I cupped my face where my skin broke, and he held up his hand again. Absolute nothingness in his eyes. What I had mistaken for emotion was nothing more than frigidness. "I demand respect. When I see you next, you will give me just that." Arca 2 returned me to my cell, and I moaned there. Babali asked me what was wrong, but I found that opening my jaw proved too painful. My face swelled, and he shuffled his way across the cell to look at me. "Oh boy, your face is broken." I nodded and went to lay on my bunk on my back. I knew that very well. I had broken my jaw once before when I was little. My sisters and I had been playing a game, tossing rocks about, and one had hit me in the face by accident. My jaw broke then, and it took 2 days to heal the fracture. Okay, my short story will 100% not be a short story. There's no way it's going to come through without being rushed. I'm thinking novella length, but I don't think it'll reach a full novel. Oh, that's cool though. Novellas are fun. Like, yeah, I love myself a good novella, especially if it's like a nice little complete short read. That sounds fun. "Did he hit you?" Babali asked. I nodded. "Are you gonna be okay?" I nodded again. And then we're gonna break this down into even more little scenes. It took Chehaya weeks to formulate the plan. In that time, Babali's ribs healed as best as they could, and the doctors upstairs removed a cast from one of his arms. The other was still useless for now, but at least he had one. My face healed in a few days, and while it was getting better, Chehaya came and got me once more. Sakita came and got me once more. He dragged me upstairs to take bone pictures of my face. He seemed impressed and carried on with me as if I was nothing more than a ghost. He did not speak to me and did not give me orders. Instead, his guards pushed me around and held me down. I had lost the luxury of choice. While my face healed, I did not eat, and I did not leave my cell. I laid on my bunk, resisting Yobe, trying my hardest to remain calm. Situational dangers piled up around me. I had a choice with Sakita. I could either obediently do as he said when he said, regain the luxury of good nutritional food and reduce the chance of violence, or I could fight. I could continue to be obstinate and wait until the day he decided he no longer needed me alive. I was sure he could learn a lot from my corpse. He did not need me breathing. I became obedient but not friendly. I refused to show him any kindness and instead met him with the same cold he showed me. When my jaw finally healed and I emerged from my cell for the first time in days, Chihaya pulled me into a corner. Hey, number 13th, how's it going? Welcome in. We're doing some line editing and developmental editing of my science fiction, so I'm reading it aloud to make sure it doesn't sound like poopy. But honestly, there's a lot to fix, so we're making it happen. It's going good. That's awesome. Good to hear. Well, welcome in. I hope you have a nice time. It's time. Is it? I asked, my muscles still sore from the repair. I haven't worked on this in a minute, so we're gonna just pick through everything really particularly. Let Babali know tonight. Tomorrow, you, Ilvara, and I will meet on this floor. I need you to cause a scene so they bring Tamarin out to settle the issue. I'm going to need you to fight the hardest you've ever fought so I can get that key. We then have moments to get on those ships. Ilvara will go will grab Babali from your cell. I like that better. Don't need to mince words. She can take care of the guard that watches him. Then it's a sprint to the ships. This has to go like clockwork or we're dead. We'll make it, I said with as much confidence as I could muster. We'll make it. Yeah, I love this book. I love this book to death. I've been working on it since 2018, and it's gone through many drafts in NaNoWriMos. I think I'm on like draft like 5 or 6 now, to be honest. So it's a whole thing. But I want to be able to push the world building, I think, on this pass, really, is the big thing, and fill it out if necessary. And we'll see how it goes. Posture check. Everybody sit up and don't be a shrimp. I was not shrimping too bad, but, you know, you can never sit up enough. Okay, so now I need to make sure that this roughly equates to about a fourth of the book. It looks like it's not. That's a lot of time. Yeah, honestly, I don't normally write adult fiction. I've got lots of books published, and most of them are middle grade books, so they're like about the age of Harry Potter, if that makes sense. So it's like the first 3 Harry Potter books, or like Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events. Like, that's kind of the age range, and those are all very fast. They're like 30,000 to 50,000 words. They're like, yeah, they're early teen. They're just before teens, if you can imagine. I don't write too much teen fiction. It's considered children's fiction because it's for ages 8 to 11. So that's how that works. And so those are very quick. I do like those. So writing adult fiction is it's been a little bit different for me. I've only written one adult book, and it was a shorter one. So this thing is a monster comparatively. It's like almost like 125K right now. And sorry, I'm looking for that chapter that we were just at. Why is this like this? And it's gonna just continue to be big. It's only gonna get bigger, I think, but that's just how science fiction goes. I needed to get down the skeleton of this thing first to make sure that all of the stuff is there, the story is there, and then I can start to beef it up. Okay, so that's about 15,000 words already right there. And if we do some math, or sorry, yeah, 15,000 divided by 125,000. About 12% of the way through the book. Yeah, 1.25, that's what I need. So that, you know what, this is good. This is still in a good spot. I'm gonna lurk, see how many words I can get in this morning. Currently at 2,376. Good luck, good luck. I believe in you. Update us with your progress as you make it. I'm excited to see how it goes. All right, Rigor Samsa. So I have these interlude chapters, and these are done in third person instead. So hopefully these won't throw people. I'll have to see how people feel about it. But hydrate. Oh god, I don't have any water. Hold on, I'm gonna go find Jace really quick before I read this Rigor Samsa chapter. I'm gonna go get some water, maybe a bagel or something. I'll be right back. Alright, cool. I have water. I drank some water. Be sure to stay hydrated if you can. If you drink some coffee, some tea, some soda, literally anything, any liquids count. Also, if you want to learn more about my work, my website just dropped into the Twitch chat if you want to check it out. I have all of my books listed on there, and right now I have 2 books that are 100% free to read if you want to look at those. One of them is a vampire fantasy inspired by a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and the other one is a fantasy about princesses. That's effectively like Frozen, but better. If you didn't like Frozen, or maybe if you did like Frozen and you wish it was higher stakes, that's Mirror Gaze. I stopped drinking coffee since 2019. Honestly, that is good. That is good. I can't drink caffeine coffee anymore. It physically hurts me. We are not friends. I have to drink decaf. Otherwise, bad things happen. Okay. Rigor Samsa. I'm so impressed with you, General. Her voice trailed through the air in General Sakida's office, bouncing off cold white walls. He watched the screen before him, his Chancellor's form displayed there in her glory. His throat constricted as if to swallow, though he did not need it. A hiccup in his systems. After a pause, the Chancellor tilted her head. Sakida, are you all right, my star? Yes, Chancellor, he replied. Pardon me, I'm lost in thought. I'm here if you need a listening ear. You know I'll always be here for you. Yes, Chancellor, he replied, his mind preoccupied with other things. I'm fine. I'm on the verge of a breakthrough with Drema, and I need time to think. In truth, it was not the experiments that preoccupied him. I'm more of a tea person. Same. 100,000 million %. I'm like such a nerd to the point where I have like custom tea blends that I make for the main characters of my books that I sell. I can't stop. I have a problem, a tea problem. I'm glad she's been of use to you. I have a question about her. Yes, what crimes has she committed? Her file in the system was blank. I had to start a new one. Oh, none. Then why have you sent her here? As a gift for you. I need your help, and you know as well as I do, you're the only one with the intellect capable of solving the particular problems we are facing. You're doing great things, Sakida. You make me proud every day. I hope you know that. Thank you. Your kind words mean more than you know. With your research, we'll make great strides, and Eclipse will finally be elevated to glory. I'm excited to share with you my plans for Mouse 9. Is that the new planet we found beyond Lyria? Yes, it seems suitable for life. A colony placement would perhaps be best, and mining for resources promising. And sentient life? Not sentient, no. Life, yes. Mere animals. Useless little aquatic creatures. We could remove them with no consequence. I drink it every day, at least twice a day. Honestly, same. I love it. Tea friends, I love that. Yeah, 2 to 3 times a day for sure. It's just really good. I don't know. I think about all the health benefits that come with tea too. Like, it's a great way to get just that little bit of caffeine depending on what you're drinking, if you prefer like black tea, for example. But then also, like, green tea is so good for you. You know, honestly, I feel like can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with it. There's like a flavor for every taste, and that's what I love about it. It never gets boring. General Sakita paused, looking to his chancellor. But the research that could be gained from the study of those creatures could prove invaluable. Why exterminate them? Trust me, there is no value they could bring to us. I've already run all the diagnostics necessary. General Sakita was certain that was not the case. I must go, my star, the Chancellor continued, the melodic tones of her voice sticking in Sakita's head. Keep up the good work. I'm impressed. Her image faded away, and General Sakita was left alone in the room. How uncharacteristic. He moved to the window, swapping opacity for something much more beautiful. The entire expanse of the universe sprawled before him, he merely a speck in its unfathomable size. Why would she suggest that? Eclipse, as long as he had been a part of it, was the shining example of a scientific pursuit. Gain knowledge, that was the goal. Several species, his people included, were invested in that pursuit. Eclipse had been formed with the intent of bringing lesser planets into its fold, seeking knowledge and then sharing that knowledge with the network. Despite a creature's insignificance, knowledge was still knowledge. Databases needed to be filled, creatures cataloged, observations done. To wipe out an entire species was out of character. She grew desperate, and that was a problem. Green tea is my favorite. Ooh, yeah, green tea is so good. I like oolong personally, but I feel like, yeah, green is amazing. It's such a good go-to. You can literally drink it with everything. Any time of day, doesn't matter. It's so good. He thought on what Drema had said. The Chancellor had given him this position after he had been involved with Eclipse for some time. His rise to general had been swift, simple. He participated in a few colonization campaigns, cutting down any inferior species who had dared stand in their way, and proven his surgical prowess. His biomechanical engineering degrees spoke for themselves. Following several scientific breakthroughs, the Chancellor gave him what he needed: responsibility and a place to work. On the Finn, he could do as he pleased. Here, he had numerous subjects to test on that no one would miss. He could spend day after day dissecting them, observing them cellularly, behaviorally, bringing countless bits of valuable knowledge to the rest of the star system. It was like living in a dream, to be respected as the authority in his field, the best of the best. It was an honor to have his face grace the posters they sent out to Terran colonies and to Comia, advertising the benefits of joining such a prestigious organization. But Drema shook his foundation. He felt not joy, nor sadness, nor fear. Not fully. Not since childhood. Since mechanization. Something about her spurred a reaction in him, his brain desperately releasing chemicals in response. Things he had not felt in decades. Anger, frustration, and perhaps fear coursed through his body. His people, his culture did its best to remove those biological influences. The information that the Chancellor had given him made him nervous. Procedures were being bypassed. When he started his job on the Finn, he had been told that the beings he experimented on were all criminals accused of atrocities unfathomable by most sound minds. If Drema had no record, that meant she spoke the truth. She had been abducted, and that violated Eclipsean code. In that moment, he realized he had not supervised an expedition to a planet in nearly a decade, and if the Chancellor made such insinuations, he could only imagine what sorts of reckless moves his Terran or Shiraki subordinates were making. Disaster was afoot, and he could see a system failure on the horizon. Drema was getting to him. When his heartbeat rose and his temper flared, he knew that something was wrong. His Chancellor concerned him. Why would she choose to deliberately break the system that she had worked so hard to build? Alright, so that's pretty dang good. I'm worried about the switch between first person and third person. And I don't know if I should Nah, it'll be fine. I think, well, here, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to scroll back up to the top of this, because if I've learned anything from Court of Snakes, what happened is I had 2 POVs and didn't label them, because I assumed people would be smart enough, or I shouldn't say smart enough, aware enough or pick up on the fact that it's switching a POV. That was not the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this little subheading here so that way it becomes clear. And inside the book itself, there will be physical, like pieces of artwork, like cap pages that mark these switches. So that'll be fine. I think that'll be enough. But I'll have to have some beta readers go through this thing and see what they think about it, if it's too... or alpha readers, truly, to see if it's too weird of a switch, but we'll see. My fingers twitched as I waited for Chehea's signal. They flicked their eyes at me from across the room, and I nodded in return. I pulled my gloves off slowly behind my back, stuffing them into the pocket that my tail slid into. I had to touch someone. I did not want to, and it would cause them a lot of pain, but it was necessary. I would target a Shirok. Their bodies were larger than mine, and my poison would cause damage, but not enough. They would not die like a human might. It would cause enough of a disaster for Chehea to make their move. What is the difference between a beta and an alpha reader? Mostly just the stage at which it happens. So like an alpha reader in my mind can happen at any stage of the process. So that's going to be maybe before developmental editing. It could be before a line edit. It could be before a proof edit if you wanted to. So those are people who you could give the book to just to check to see how it reads. I personally wouldn't give it to an alpha reader until after the developmental edit phase. So that way I know that the book is like 100% there for the most part. It just needs more stuff in it potentially, or a good hose down with a line edit. Versus a beta reader should be given the copy of the book as it looks almost for publication. Like this is going to be effectively the very last stage of any kind of eyes passing over the thing before you send it on to ARC readers. Because ARC readers are effectively early reviewers, so they're not going to make any changes to the book. But beta readers can. You can still like catch those last weird things like typos or formatting errors or things like that. So beta readers are really at the edge of the stage. They're not quite a reviewer, but they're not an editor, versus an alpha reader could be anywhere earlier in the process, if that makes sense. So technically what you're doing right now, as sitting in here, listening to this, is you could very well function as an alpha reader if you wanted to. So if you have any feedback, or if you're listening to it and something catches you and you're like, oh, that's a little weird, feel free to leave feedback, because definitely we're picking it apart. Let's see. They would not die like a human might. It would cause enough of a disaster for Chehea to make their move. 2 Shiraki guards moved around the yard in a pair, and I took deep breaths to stop my shaking while I waited for them to come closer to me. Yeah, no pressure, of course. Yeah, you don't have to leave feedback if you don't want to. You can also just sit and listen too. That's totally viable. Totally valid. They eventually stood beside a table, monitoring a few Osk that milled about, and I moved. I reached my hands through the open holes in the exoskeletons of their mechs and touched their hands where they sat on controls. That was all I needed. They immediately cried out in pain as their joints locked up, and one of them managed to hit a panic button in their mech. An alarm began to sound in the yard, and the other 2 guards, one Shirok and the other human, rushed to me. I ripped the mask off my face and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Freedom!" The Osk near me roared, and both charged at the other 2 guards, as if I had ignited a forest fire. I don't even need this here. As if I had ignited a forest fire, the entire yard devolved into chaos. Osk rampaged and charged at guards that approached, and the 2 Shiraki guards near me collapsed into a heap as they were unable to move. The other Shiraki guard wrestled with an Osk in their mech, and the human was overtaken by bulk that scurried up them like a tree. The swarm of them eventually obscured his form. I kept my eyes on Chehea as the Osk took down the other Shiraki guard. With the prisoners' sheer numbers, we could potentially overtake the entire prison. As soon as the third Shirok hit the ground, I rushed to touch him. He locked up in his metal cage and... Let's see, this needs to be fixed. Bang. The prisoners turned as a human in a large mech stomped his way onto the yard with a gun in hand. He fired another pulsing shot into the air, and the room grew silent. He was flanked by 2 other humans who gripped weapons as well. "Everyone," he barked, "back in your cells now." The room shuddered as prisoners looked at each other, unsure if they were willing to take the risk. An Osk stomped its feet into the ground, let out a huge bellow that rattled the inside of my chest, and charged. It used its thick skull to knock who I assumed to be Tamarin back into the walls of light panels, shattering them and sending sparks everywhere. Or let's see. This doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to figure out how she would describe this. There we go, that's better. Back into the wall of panels that Sakita's face often graced, shattering them and sending sparks everywhere. That's better. Chihaya nodded to me and we rushed the man in the suit as the other humans fired shots at let's see. As the guards fired shots at the other prisoners, the entire space was an echo of gunfire and metals, screams, and the sound of bones breaking. Chihaya... I'm gonna regret that later. I always use British English, and I don't know why this happened to me. Chihaya leaped onto the outside of Tamarin's exoskeleton and grabbed at something around his neck. "This is him," they screamed. "Drema, quick!" I ran to their side and began to guard them as they searched for the chip. A human guard turned to me, and I put my hands out ready to do what I needed to. I heard the shifting of metal behind me as Tamarin rose in his mech, throwing Chihaya aside. They hit a nearby table, and I turned to scramble up his suit. I felt terrible about it, but I reached through the cage to touch Tamarin's face. I watched my poison shoot through his veins, every muscle tensing as it passed, and he began to convulse, foam trailing at the corners of his mouth. The mech collapsed, and I turned to face the other guard. He went to shoot at me, but Chihaya took a gun from another guard and shot him first. What's wrong with British English? The main problem is that I'm not English. I'm not from Britain, from Great Britain. So when I release my book in the United States, it can be confusing for people. And the main issue is that for me, I had a international high school education, so I was reading textbooks that also were in British English, and wrote all my papers in British English. And then in college, I went to American colleges. And so I ended up having effectively, it's like half British English, half American English. So for example, I don't spell color C-O-L-O-U-R. I spell it C-O-L-O-R, but I spell leapt like L-E-A-P-T instead of leaped like L-E-A-P-E-D. So it's like a half and half, so I have to try and catch the British ones and convert it back to American English because that's predominantly where my audience is. It's really extra, and I regret all of my life choices.
Do you want just a bagel, or I'm making an egg sandwich for myself?
Just a bagel's fine for me. That'll be okay. Thank you, Jace. Yeah, so I have to choose. I have to pick one or the other.
Okay. Savory or sweet?
I'll do a savory bagel, please. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, honestly, I throw this stuff into Grammarly typically before I do my first send to a line editor. And most of the time Grammarly will catch it, which is good. So if I don't see it, then it will, thankfully. His blood sputtered from the side of his skull as the laser penetrated it, burning a hole through his helmet clear through to the other side. Chihaya threw the gun over their shoulder by the strap and rushed Tamarin. "I can't get the mech open," they shouted. "Oh, I thought English wasn't your first language." It is. Yeah, English is my first language. Spanish is my second. I don't write in Spanish, though. But yeah, no, I ended up just getting messed up in the American high school system. I learned Latin when I was a kid, and then English, and then Spanish, And then international high school system was cursed, and, and then now here I am. So my brain is soup, in other words. Chehaya threw the gun over their shoulder by the strap and rushed Tamarin. I can't get the mech open, they shouted. My skin tensed, and, I'm gonna change this. My muscles tensed and I turned to find an Osk charging full speed at us. I jumped and shoved Chehaya out of the way as the beast slammed into Tamarin's body, further crushing the panels behind them. The mech shattered and his limp, dead body rolled out of the cage. The Osk sniffed at it, satisfied with its work, and returned to causing chaos elsewhere. Chehaya patted down Tamarin's body, and after a few moments, they drew an electric card from his pocket. Got it, they shouted and pulled a gun. Or let's see. There we go, this is better. They shouted and pulled a handgun from a holster at Tamarin's waist. They fired 3 times into the air with the small handgun, startling the creatures around them. Instead of shooting an invisible bullet, this handheld firearm shot off a sound that rumbled like thunder and shook the entire room but launched no bullets. Gotta love sonic weapons. I never learned Latin. I speak Italian, but I don't think that counts. It's pretty darn similar, to be honest. I learned Latin because my mom raised me Catholic, and so we did like a little bit of Latin as part of my like elementary school education, but I don't use it anymore. I did kind of use it to learn Spanish, because Spanish and Italian are super similar. Sometimes I can read Italian, or if people speak Italian to me, I can understand it. I just can't speak it back, so it's very weird. They're like all in the same family or something. But Italian's beautiful. It's a wonderful language. On cue, a guard from the level above came flying over the railing, hollering as she hit the floor of the yard below. Ubulk immediately swarmed her, giving her no time to return to her feet. Moments later, Ilvara came vaulting over the railing with Babali on her back. As soon as we saw her, Chehaya and I darted into the hallway toward the emergency escape ships. The hall was quiet compared to the rest of the floor, and we dodged out-of-sight guards that passed who rushed to stop the riot. Or we dodged out of sight of guards that passed who rushed to stop the riot. You know, I don't need this sentence. After we were all sure the hall was empty, we sprinted toward the doors that led to escape ships. This is fucking crazy, Babali muttered. We're going to die. Shut your mouth, Chehaya spat. We'll be just fine. Chehaya ran the key over the door. The light flashed green, and the door began to open. I guess that's fine. I don't like door and door. Actually, I'm gonna do this instead. Chehaya ran the key over a smooth square on the wall. The light flashed green and the door began to open. That's better. Relief rushed through me and I felt my knees grow weak, but then the door stopped. It opened about a foot and then the entire hallway flashed red, accompanied by a loud siren. I covered my head and closed my mouth as the air rang out. For context, the way that Drema hears is her, the sound is amplified if she opens her mouth because she has no external ears, and so she uses her mouth as like a, like an acoustic drum, like the inside of a guitar, so that's why she's doing that. Yeah, I covered my head and closed my mouth as the air rang out. Or, I guess it's sound. That's better. Chehaya jammed their body into the door, attempting to squeeze through, but their chest was too wide. Fuck, they screamed. No! White smoke hissed out of the vents in the walls, and Babali and Ylvara were the first to cough as it rose. The dense fog made its way down the hallway, and as I inhaled the peppery mist, Ylvara and Babali collapsed. Chehaya covered their mouth, and soon their eyes rolled back into their head as they fainted. The world spun around me, and I gripped the wall for support. As I fell to my knees, a figure stepped through the fog. Sakita's black, cloaked silhouette strode through the mist, flanked by several guards, and the last thing I saw before sleep was the cold in his eyes. Yeah, for context, let's see, I can open this up. Yeah, Drema is she's technically an amphibian. She's very similar to like a salamander. Let me get some stuff open here. Let's do these ones. But, this is Drema, so she's very cute. But she does breathe oxygen. She just can't breathe certain things on certain planets, so... I haven't drawn her in a prison uniform yet, but this is her size compared to like an average human. She's pretty tall. But yeah, all of her skin is toxic, so if she touches you, it's a bad times. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I'm a Viz Dev student too at the moment, so I work on concept art a lot. And then this is Sakita. He's the general, but he's 100% cybernetic effectively from the like neck down. So but he's fun. I love him. I love him in his long, stupid ponytail. He's just a little bit tinier than Drema. The Zomarine are not that big. But, yeah. Okay, so that's pretty good. The pacing is good. I'm going to need to probably do another line edit on that particular chapter, but that's okay. Sometimes that's the way that it goes. I awoke blind and in silence. Restraints forced my arms tight behind my back, and my fingers felt icy due to lack of circulation. I was unsure if something obstructed my vision, if I was in a completely dark room, or if I had gone blind for one reason or another. I cried out, and the sound I made seemed dampened by something. I maintained my ability to stand, and my feet planted on solid metal or stone. By groping around in the dark, my shins bumped a platform that jutted out of the wall, topped by something soft and something metal. This is awful. Okay, hold on. Wait a second. Wowee, this is a bad cluster of sentences. That's better. By groping around in the dark, my shins bumped a platform topped by something soft that... Oh, man, hold on. Okay, you know what? This is what we use Grammarly for. This is exactly what this is for. Grammarly, save my life. This is an awful sentence. Please save me. Save my life. Text is too short. Grammarly! Okay, hold on. I guess, you know what? She can't see that there's, like, mattress on it, so... That's better. That's... Okay, there we go. Much better. By groping around in the dark, my shins bumped a platform that jutted out of the wall. Something metal and round hit my knees when I turned. I decided to lay down on the platform. There we go. Surprised that it felt soft on the top and attempts to sleep, but hours passed and I could not bring myself to relax. Let me see here. All right. When morning came, I knew it. Blue bright lights hummed on with an electric click, and I found myself in a solitary cell with no windows. It contained a bed and a toilet, nothing more. What? Fuck if I know. Past me, I don't know what I was thinking. The locked doorway, A locked doorway stood as a metal guardian to the outside world, and I wondered where I was. Footsteps echoed down the hall beyond the wall, and soon my door slammed open. I was greeted by Arcas, outfitted in yellow here, and they pulled me outside, unconcerned for my physical comfort. My arms were restrained in a jacket, quite like the one I had on when I first arrived at the Finn, and several other prisoners in the same outfit followed Arcas down the hall into a centralized room. We were all fed into a line where trays passed in front of us, one dry cracker of some kind ejected onto a plate from an unknown source, and a glass of water in a plastic cup slid onto the plate soon afterward. When we reached the end of the line, the other prisoners and I, a metallic arm unclasped our backs and allowed us to pick up the trays. My hands and face were covered compared to the other inmates who were all allowed to expose their skin. They grabbed their trays, and I followed into a hall where everyone sat and as quickly as possible wolfed down their crackers. I ate mine hesitantly after an Arca uncovered my face, finding it tasted no better than swamp mud, and I finished my glass of water to wash it down. The man next to me was one of the aquatic people in a large glass suit. Or let's see. This makes more sense. One of the aquatic people in a suit with a glass-domed helmet, his eyes wild and distressed. His hand shook, and he tapped the tray incessantly. "Hey," I whispered as to not attract attention from the Arcas. "Hey, where are we?"
Would you like some coffee, tea, or juice?
Tea, please.
Tea? Okay.
Thank you. Yay! Time for tea. "Shut up," he spat back. "I just got here today. If you don't shut your mouth, I will take the next cracker I get tomorrow and shove it up your slimy ass." I widened my eyes in resignation and let out a heavy sigh. An Arca came by and covered my face again. Everyone here seemed terrified or dead in the eyes, and I feared for what awaited me. After what seemed like only moments, the Arca shuffled us into another line with our trays where we all returned them to wherever they came from. We then shambled into another room lined with rows and rows of machines. I had never seen anything like it, and the white arms hummed as they awaited us. The prisoners lined up, one to a machine next to a bin of fabric, and waited. My fingers twitched in anticipation as I watched the prisoner next to me, the same fish as before, and was wondering... Or let's see. Wow, this is passive as hell. I don't need that. And wondered if I would receive any instruction or information as to what was happening. When a grating, high-pitched tone rang out and echoed across the space, so loud I jumped, the prisoners began loading a pair of matching fabric pieces flat into the machine. I watched what the prisoner next to me did and did the same. The machine ate up the fabric as soon as I set it down, and it whirred and hummed as it pulled fabric in and out, stitching parts together. When the machine finished, a light flashed green on the front, and the prisoner next to me tossed his piece into another empty bin. My machine finished shortly after, my piece identical to his, and I tossed the fabric into the container. Okay, I'm gonna eat a bagel. Give me like 2 seconds. No. Breakfast time. And so it was for hours and hours and hours. Feed, stitch, toss, feed, stitch, toss. I don't need to repeat this that many times. When my bin filled to the top, the bottom lit up and it zoomed away to some other part of the room. Another bin soon returned to my side empty, and we worked like this until the tone rang out again. We all finished our current pieces, lined up, and returned to the first room where another cracker was spat out for us to eat. I gladly took mine, hungry after standing for so long, and after I finished dinner, I watched a prisoner with a solid gold finger battle with his cup. Eventually, he resorted to using his other hand, dissatisfied with his digit's grip. He slurped at the water, his human face covered in scars, and then noticed me staring. "You got something to say, fish?" "What?" I stammered. "No, not really. I was just admiring your hand." "You like it?" He grinned, his face full of gold teeth. "I made it out of all the gold I've ever stolen. Had it minted down into this lovely finger after I lost mine." "They let you keep it?" "It's not one of those fancy mechanical parts, you understand. Just good old solid gold." "Quiet," Anarchus spat in a grating metallic voice. The human flicked an eyebrow at me and grinned, shaking his head. "Don't mind them. They can't actually do anything to us if we talk." "You've been here for a while, I assume?" I said as the robots forced us to stand again. I don't think it's been mentioned up until this point that they are robots. I don't think that she knows. Hey, 3060. Woo! Amazing, you're making it happen. I am now partially consuming a bagel, and I'm gonna try and get through this chapter before I have to go in like 30 minutes. We'll see how it goes. I said as the Arcus forced us to stand again. "Too long. I'm a trader to Eclipse, so that has me in here making suits. You? Just came today. You got a long road ahead of you, boy," he said, chuckling to himself. "Name's Goldfinger." Appropriate. "I'm Drema. What are you in here for?" "Starting a riot. You?" "You?" he cried out, laughing, the sound bursting around the room. "You started a riot?" "Me and a few others." "Damn, you got spunk. I was the upstairs trader before Flyby got me canned. He got me on the guard's bad side, and here I am." "I'm sorry." "What's done is done. It was a long time ago anyway. I like you, Drema. I hope to see you on the line sometime." They pushed us back into the manufacturing room after we returned our trays, and our rote day resumed. I realized we were making... Oh, actually, it wasn't dinner. I said dinner earlier here. It's lunch, actually. And actually, I don't think she has a word for lunch. I'm gonna say midday meal instead. Bagels truly are the best. I love bagels so much. I realized we were making uniforms halfway through the second shift. They were the same material as all the Eclipse guards' clothes from upstairs, in the same colors, blue and gold. My bin shot across the floor to another group that stitched more pieces onto what ended up becoming a shirt, which was then folded by a robotic arm and shipped out to be used by Eclipse, presumably. After our second shift, we were given a third cracker and a third glass of water, and then promptly returned to our rooms. I did not see Goldfinger, but wanted to talk to him more. I would hopefully learn something about this place and why I was there. When I needed to relieve myself in my cell, arms unfolded from the wall to unclip my jacket. A black, shiny ball descended from the ceiling, blinking with a single red light while I did so, and as soon as I was finished, the wall arms closed me up again. Shortly after we arrived at our cells, the light shut off, and I figured it was my cue to sleep. Days went on like that. After the third, I already felt myself wanting to pick at my own skin to break the monotony. I did not see Goldfinger at all, and the fish with the wild eyes seemed to follow me, his mouth agape. On the fourth day, an accident happened. A worker had gotten his arm caught in the press that ironed the uniforms, and had scalded his Shiraki skin so terribly the hair melted. The entire room smelled acrid, and many prisoners covered their faces to guard themselves from the stench. The Arcas dragged the prisoner from the room screaming, and we never saw him again. Thank you. I got tea. Day 5, I finally met up with Goldfinger. He drummed his metal finger against the table, grating and abrasive, and smiled as it drove the other prisoners mad. What is this place? I asked over our dinner cracker. Work camp, he replied. Sakita puts prisoners here that are too unruly. If you cause too much trouble, you get to work with the machines. We sew and sew and sew, and that's it. Nothing else. Do people leave? Yeah, sometimes, he said as he guzzled his water. If Sakita decides you've been punished enough, or if you have an accident, sometimes people have accidents on purpose to get out of work camp. Doesn't always work, though. Sometimes they incinerate you. The fish inmate with the wild eyes stared at me, veins bulging from his neck as he gazed. A shiver ran up my spine, and I thumbed over my shoulder at him. Who's that? I muttered, hoping he would not hear me. We call him Jerry, Goldfinger whispered. He freaks everyone out, hates it when we talk. Jerry stared and his eye twitched as he looked at me. I turned away from him. He was the same race as the being I had bumped into many weeks ago, a fish with legs and arms and a helmet full of water. Chihaya had mentioned that his kind were Zomaranian experiments, too. Maybe if I ignored him, he would just go away. Something about him unsettled me, and the yobe churned in the base of my spine. I appreciate you answering my questions, I told Goldfinger as we returned our trays. I appreciate your company. Thanks for the good conversation. After a while, I lost track of the days. My mind numbed as I worked, and I almost lost the drive to escape. I wondered what had happened to Babali, Ilvara, and Chihaya. This was another major offense by Babali, so I would not be surprised if Sakita killed him. Ilvara and Chihaya posed a combined threat with their skill sets, and it was likely they had been killed also. Is that my tea, Jace?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Black tea today. I wept for them one night, mostly at the thought that I would maybe never know. Okay, I would like to extend a massive content warning to everyone. There is a scene with SA in it, so if you don't want to listen to it, please scroll away on the stream. Nothing actually happens, but it gets very, very close, and I just don't want to, like, trigger anybody. I walked down the hall, back to myself for the millionth time, and past a closet which had been closed every single day since my time at the work camp. I glanced to the right, expecting to see an Arca or another worker grabbing supplies, but what I saw shot the yobe into my throat. Jerry the fish stood in the closet, illuminating the inside of it with the lightning he created inside his bowl. His eyes darted wildly, and he smiled, and then he grabbed me. He was much larger than I, and he grabbed my arm before I could run. Somehow, he had gotten his lock on his back undone, and I was helpless against his grip. He threw my body, my arms trapped behind my back, onto the floor of the closet, and boxes of supplies tumbled to the floor in an avalanche. I hoped the noise was loud enough for an Arca to hear me. "Help!" I cried out at the top of my lungs, screaming so loud my throat became hoarse. "Help me!" Jerry put his hand over my mouth, putting his whole weight on me, compressing my chest so I could hardly breathe. He glanced around the room and began to dig through boxes with his free hand. Something metal hit the ground, and I moved my eyes as far as I could to see what it was. Jerry smiled and picked the object up, clicking it open with his thumb. A knife, one I had seen Arcas use to open boxes. I continued to scream under his hand, even though I was sure no one could hear, and he ran the blade down the front of my jacket. The fabric tore slowly as he pulled the blade until he ripped the space between my legs. I shook and writhed underneath him as best as I could, attempting to kick him off me, and he laid his knees on top of on top of mine To keep me from moving, the Yobe decided it was no longer time to fight, so I froze. Knife, suit, lightning trapped. Knife, suit, lightning trapped. I locked up as Jerry took the blade and cut at my skin with it. He laughed as I bled, but I felt none of the pain. I would later when the Yobe let up, but for now it was a phantom sensation, like he cut a body that was not my own. He bent his head down and smeared the blood all over the surface of his glass helmet and smiled at me through it. He walked his fingers down my skin, and if I could have smiled, I would have. He was about to stick what looked to be his entire exposed hand somewhere that was meant for no one but my Amog when he froze. He began to shoot lightning around the inside of his helmet, and he convulsed on the floor as my toxin hit his brain. I stood and screamed at the top of my lungs, and I threw my foot directly through the front of his helmet. My own blood smeared across the toe of my suit as the glass shattered from the force and the water spilled out onto the floor, exposing Jerry's face to the crisp air of the fin. He gulped and gulped, seizing and convulsing as he lay on the floor in his own fluids, and after a moment his lightning fizzled out. I cried out in my weakness, and my Yobe faded as I trembled on the floor, sitting amongst the boxes and supplies. After a moment of crying out, 2 Arcas approached the closet. Okay, content warning is over. That was it. Rip Jerry. Fuck that guy. I shook, or what is the meaning of this, one asked. I shook and said nothing. While I had beaten out the Yobe, some of its effects lingered, and I could not bring myself to speak. I felt physically ill, and my throat tightened, making it hard to swallow. An Arca picked me up and dragged me back to my cell. After a little while, they returned with a new coat for me. I lay in the bed that night, horrified of what I had done, but also incredibly glad that I was alive.
Mr. Cat, what are you doing? You're gross.
Ew. He's so nasty. Y'all, he's so nasty.
He's so nasty. Sir, you smell like Dookie.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to call it because I do have to go down to the leasing office to go and talk to the people there. I have an event tomorrow, actually, at my apartment. But we made some good progress. And we are now, I think, about 1/8 of the way through the book. Oh my god, Mr. Cat. Yeah, roughly, give or take. Not quite, but almost. So, awesome. Well, thanks for everybody for hanging out. I appreciate all of you. And I'll be back tomorrow with a art stream. I'll be doing Heaven's Equal stuff tomorrow. So I will see you then, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.